if Luke and Han enjoyed the Tauntaun and decided to wear it for the rest of the movie? As Han Solo zipped up the freshly hollowed out Tauntaun around Luke's shivering body, something unexpected happened. "You know, kid," Han said, shifting his weight into the snow, "this thing's kinda cozy once you get past the smell." Luke, barely conscious, muttered something incoherent, but seemed to snuggle deeper into the warmth of the Tauntaun's insides. The fur, while damp and sticky, provided excellent insulation against the Hoth winds. By the time they were rescued the next morning, Luke and Han had developed an emotional attachment to the Tauntaun. When rebel medics tried to pry Luke out, he clung to it like a child refusing to let go of a beloved stuffed animal. "No," Luke insisted. "I think I'll keep it." Han scratched his chin. "Yeah, actually, I could get used to this. What do you think, Chewie?" Chewbacca took one look at them, let out a deeply unsettled growl, and walked away. As Echo Base scrambled to evacuate, Han and Luke worked to preserve their Tauntaun suits. Han had cut his into a crude jacket, leaving the tail draping behind him for dramatic effect. Luke's was less refined. He simply wore the whole thing like an oversized robe, the preserved head resting awkwardly over his shoulder like a bizarre hood. Leia, upon seeing them, froze mid-sentence. "What, in the name of the rebellion, are you two wearing?" Han smirked and dusted off his fur-covered arms. "Like it? Custom job." Leia gagged. "It still has a tail." Luke, still recovering from hypothermia, nodded solemnly. "This Tauntaun gave its life for me. I will honor its sacrifice." Leia looked between them, pinched the bridge of her nose, and sighed. "I can't believe I'm in love with one of you." Meanwhile, rebel troopers watched in stunned silence as Han strutted through the base like a man too confident in his fashion choices. A few young pilots, inspired by his boldness, began sewing together makeshift Tauntaun-themed capes. A new fashion trend had begun. As AT-ATs lumbered toward Echo Base, Luke climbed into his snowspeeder, still draped in his Tauntaun. The rest of Rogue Squadron hesitated before taking their positions. Commander Skywalker?" Wedge radioed in. "You, good?" Luke pulled his goggles over his fur-covered face. "The Tauntaun guides me now." Wedge took a long, deep breath. "Copy that." Despite concerns, Luke performed brilliantly, expertly leading the assault against the AT-ATs. Some claimed the Tauntaun pelt gave him increased agility. Others believed he had simply gone insane from hypothermia. Either way, no one could deny the results. Han, meanwhile, was much less effective. Piloting the Falcon in his full Tauntaun coat proved problematic. The oversized fur sleeves kept getting caught in the controls, nearly causing a crash. "Chewie, help me out here!" Han barked, trying to shake his arm free of a snagged lever. Chewbacca, grumbling in exasperation, simply ripped Han's sleeve right off. Han gasped, "Chewie, that was my favorite part!" Chewie let out a long, fed-up roar. Dagobah, a Jedi, and his fur. Luke arrived on Dagobah, still draped in his Tauntaun hide, which by this point had started to reek. As he crashed into the swamp, Yoda peered at him from undergrowth, his large eyes narrowing. Strange this one is. Smells of death, he does." Luke, wading through the muck, adjusted the Tauntaun head resting on his shoulder. "It keeps me warm." Yoda sniffed, then gagged. "Warm perhaps, but the swamp welcomes rot. No place for a carcass this is." Luke remained defiant. He trained under Yoda with the Tauntaun wrapped around him like a sacred relic. Balancing Yoda on his back became awkward as the Tauntaun's remaining leg flopped uselessly behind him, but Luke refused to part with it. When Yoda tried to convince him otherwise, Luke dramatically flung out his arms and declared, "You don't understand! The Tauntaun saved my life!" Yoda sighed. Another Skywalker. Meanwhile, on the Falcon, Han had doubled down on his fashion choices. Now, instead of just wearing his Tauntaun coat, he had reinforced it with patches of wampa fur scavenged from Echo Base. The result? A massive fur-lined cloak that made him look like a space Viking. Lando, upon seeing Han's arrival in Cloud City, burst into laughter so loud it echoed throughout the many halls. "You look ridiculous," Lando wheezed, wiping tears from his eyes. Han smirked. "Laugh all you want, buddy. I'm never cold." Lando's smile faded as he got a sniff. "You smell terrible." The duel on Bespin. When Luke confronted Vader, he had fully embraced his Tauntaun central aesthetic. The fur draped over his shoulder like a Jedi robe, the preserved skull fashioned into a makeshift shoulder guard. Vader paused mid-step. "What are you wearing?" Luke ignited his lightsaber. "The soul of my fallen comrade." Even Vader, Darth Lord of the Sith, hesitated for a moment. That is very unsettling. The duel was fierce, but Luke's Tauntaun armor provided unexpected advantages. Every time Vader struck, the thick, snow-matted fur absorbed the impact, muffling blows that would have otherwise done serious damage. When Vader cut off Luke's hand, the young Jedi barely flinched. "Joke's on you," Luke panted. "The Tauntaun absorbed my pain." Vader exhaled sharply. "I truly regret having you." Return of the Jedi. The legend continues. By the time Luke infiltrated Jabba's palace, the legend of Luke Tauntaun Walker had spread across the galaxy. Bounty hunters whispered of the Jedi who wore his fallen mount like a warrior's shroud. Even Jabba himself was mildly impressed. Luke strode into the throne room, Tauntaun fur still hanging over his shoulders, and lifted a hand. "I am here to bargain." Jabba blinked. "Why do you still wear that thing?" Luke narrowed his eyes. "I am the Tauntaun." Jabba ordered him to be thrown into the Rancor pit immediately. As the rebels stormed the forest moon of Endor, Han has adapted his Tauntaun coat yet again, now reinforced with Ewok fur as well. Leia was not amused. "I swear to the Force, Han, if you keep wearing that thing." Han grinned. "What? I blend right in." The Ewoks, meanwhile, regarded Han as an honorary chieftain for his fur-clad appearance. C-3PO's status as a golden god? Irrelevant. Han Solo, master of the Tauntaun Wampa Ewok pelt, had become their new icon. Luke, standing at the bonfire after the battle, gazed at the stars. The spirits of Obi-Wan, Yoda, and Anakin Skywalker appeared before him. His father's spectral form studied him for a long moment. Then, with the weight of a fallen Jedi, he spoke. "Son, we need to talk about your fashion choices."